Welcome everybody to a very special spotlight here as I'm going to be taking a look at 10 of my favorite games from Next Fest 2022. We play them throughout the entire festival, and these will be some of my favorite titles. You'll find information and links to all of them in the description down below. But we are starting off with the game, The Wandering Village. And this is a kind of, I guess in a way, a narrative or kind of uniquely driven city builder. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Airborne Kingdom. But our concept here is that we are building a city. It just so happens that it's on top of a giant turtle creature who is wandering a poison-filled land. So the challenge of the game is twofold. Not only do you have to build your settlement, make sure you take care of the needs of the various people, but also keep your turtle happy by giving him food and making sure to guide him away from deadly poison. So as city builders go, the game hits all the usual trends. Put down structures, get resources produced, and try keep everyone from being killed by your own ineptitude. But difficulty-wise, it was, I think, on the moderate side. One of the big things is you're going to need a lot of water for crops. And whatever the game tells you to do in the tutorial, you want a little bit more than that. And this is one of those games where once you start losing, it can be very hard to course correct and get out of that downward spiral. But I am liking this trend of city builders trying to do something different from the usual trends. And if you are looking for a different kind, I would definitely check out The Wandering Village. We now turn to Kusan, City of Wolves, and definitely a complete difference from our previous game. This is a kind of different take on the Hotline Miami formula, where just like before, your job is to go through areas clearing out waves and waves of bad guys, and hopefully not getting killed in the process. Now, where the game differs from Hotline Miami is definitely in the sense of flow that you have with your moves. You can knock doors open, you have a gun, and you also get a knife that acts as an instant kill. And part of the challenge of Kusan is that you need to get into this rhythm of open door, throw knife, shoot any enemy, and hopefully not get killed. And just like with the Hotline Miami kind of design, it's very fast-paced and very decisive in terms of whether or not you're going to win or lose. After each level, you're given the opportunity to upgrade your various perks, such as giving the ability to punch counter bullets using your cybernetic hand. And the game features a story told through comic book style paneling that will, of course, lead to more deeper mysteries and things like that. And what I did like about Kusan, again, was the different sense of flow that happens as you play through these maps. This isn't as chaotic or out of control as Hotline Miami was, and it does feel like this could be an elevated take on that gameplay. With that said, this is certainly on the harder side, as you only get one hit and then you'll have to restart. And the game will feature boss fights, which the boss of the demo was on the very difficult side, but I've been told by the developer that they have been balancing that since this demo play. So if you are a fan of the Hotline Miami top-down formula, definitely give Kusan a try and keep an eye out for it when it is released. We now turn to Neon White. This is a kind of speed run platforming element or platforming focus FPS with a ton of style to it. We play as Amnesiac, who is trapped in kind of the purgatory of between heaven and hell. And in order to make it to heaven, he is going to have to kill lots and lots of demons in a competition. The game certainly oozes style, and a lot of the kind of dialogue and just like general tone of it really reminds me of some of the like absurdities of a Suda 51 style game. But in terms of our general mechanics here, you are able to obviously run and jump, and you're graded on how fast you make it through these levels. You'll have to kill every demon that stands in your way. Now, the mechanics of your weapons are built around these cards that you see in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Every weapon card has a corresponding attack to it, but it can also be sacrificed in order to produce a secondary effect. And that secondary effect could be giving you a double jump, shooting out a rocket, and of course the list goes on, as so does the game. Now, the progression of Neon White is by how well you complete each level will raise your overall ranking, and certain missions and story content will be locked behind these gates of whatever your ranking may be. And I did enjoy this game. Now, the general gunplay and movement is on the basic side. If you're hoping for like super advanced tech like in a 3D platformer, or something kind of more focused on the movement like that roguelike 3D or that roguelike first-person platformer that we played last year, I don't know if Neon White is going to go that far. But the style of this game certainly carries it, and the game does feel good to play. And I would say that if you are a fan of a very movement-driven FPS, then definitely check it out. We now have Minishoot Adventure. And this is a kind of, what if we combine a shmup with a Metroidvania? And it's a surprisingly good combination. So we are the lone ship who will have to save our planet from evil. And to do that, we are going to kind of, I guess, hover across the ground and shoot and pew-pew many different things. In terms of the basic mechanics, you are able to move, shoot, and the game does introduce tech in terms of being able to dash, as well kind of do like a Zelda style like dash across, gaps and stuff like that. You can get upgrades to your core stats by killing enemies and filling that kind of ruby gauge that you see in the upper left. The world is, again, that style of sort of open, as you're free to wander around looking for side grades and upgrades along those lines, and then going to the main dungeon to fight big bad bosses, get your actual mechanics, and so on and so forth. But again, the game definitely falls more on the shoot 'em up or even dodge 'em up style, as you'll need to keep track of enemy patterns and try getting your shots whenever you can. And I enjoy this one. It's a game that is very straightforward in its approach, but it is one of those games that what you see is what you get, and if you enjoy the first few minutes of playing, you're going to keep enjoying it, like we did on stream. While not the most advanced game, at least from the demo that we played, all in all, I just enjoyed this game from beginning to end of the demo, and just a really solid execution of these mechanics. So, if you are a fan of Metroiding or shmupping or any other ings that you can think of, definitely check out Minishoot Adventures. Up now, we have Souldiers. This is a 2D action-adventure game, kind of in the same vein of something like Salt and Sanctuary, or more of a kind of like linear style game. And first, like right off the bat, the pixel art in this one is fantastic. It reminds you of kind of the high mark that was set by Owlboy. But unlike Owlboy, this is definitely more on the action side as opposed to just being a pure platformer or a Metroidvania. Our story is that we are sent to a mythical land in order to figure out why our kingdom is being befallen by evil. Now, the demo that we played requires you to play as one class, but the description does allow you to play as other classes. I believe have different starting skills and a super. The gameplay is, again, focused on action. You have multiple kinds of attacks. You can also counter, and there are skill trees or perks and equipment you can find in the world. Now, from what I played of the demo, this is on the, I would say, moderate to moderately difficult side. As enemies will hit hard, you do get a parry if you're playing as the knight. And the world, again, is set up linear. So everything is 100% handmade. And I'm really fascinated to see where this game is going to go in terms of progression, upgrades, any kind of tech, that kind of discussion. Now, as I said, it can be on the harder side, and I'm not sure there will be any affordances or things to make things easier for you. But really a standout demo from what we played of it during the festival, and one that I cannot recommend enough to at least check out if you are a fan of action-adventure style games. So, with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have 5 more games to look at for this showcase. And as always, if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then check out my offering of books. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with free-to-play coming in 2022. We now turn to Turbo Overkill, that may take home like best of show for me, or best of Next Fest for the entire festival. And this is a cyberpunk, I guess, take on push-forward combat. I think it's very similar in some respect to another game I'm really looking forward to, Overkill, where Overkill focused more on demons, heaven, hell, that kind of thing. Turbo Overkill is cyberpunk, with your many multitude of weapons, and you have a chainsaw on your right leg. It turns out a rogue AI is trying to take over the neon-drenched city, and we're going to have to pew-pew and chainsaw our way to victory. So this is 100% high-speed FPS. You get different weapons. You can also slide and jump at enemies using your chainsaw to do massive damage. And the game does feature some elements of push-forward combat in the form of getting upgrades that you can attach to your various cybernetic limbs. One of them basically gives you armor and health whenever you chainsaw kill an enemy. So this allows you to just like charge at somebody, get in, get back out, and get back to fighting. The gunplay of Turbo Overkill is really well done. Every weapon has a unique function to it, and also a unique special. Your shotgun, for instance, can be upgraded that you can basically pump it multiple times to turn into a massive like stun grenade launcher. You also get your very own grenade launcher as well. Your pistol gets the RoboCop kind of auto-target power, and I'm sure there's many more things as well. Levels are, of course, very vertically challenged, as you can see. And you will also find secrets, hidden collectibles, all that good FPS shooter stuff. In terms of complaints, I really didn't have any for this one. There are far less buttons to play around with compared to something like Doom Eternal, which does make it a little bit more on the approachable side. The levels are huge, there's a lot of things to do, and this is one of those games that it knows what it wants to be. And if you enjoy this kind of gameplay, definitely, 1000% check this one out, because it definitely looks like there is a lot of potential here. Now up, this is Ixion. Ixion? I'm not sure how to perfectly pronounce that. But this is a city builder or spaceship builder. In a weird way, I get elements of like one of the futuristic Anno games, as well as something along the lines of Frostpunk or even Airborne Kingdoms. Airborne Kingdom. There's a lot here in terms of different elements and systems of city building. Your goal is you are in charge of this space station, and you're going to go out into the universe to try and find humanity a new home. And in order to do that, you need to make sure that your colonists are able to survive, there's food coming in, and that nobody tries to mutiny and take over your job. So this is, in terms of its city building or the general construction, more about logistics rather than building placements. As long as something's attached to a road, it will function all the same. Where the game kind of differs from its contemporaries is that you can also upgrade and add stuff to the space station itself and send out missions and stuff to the solar system that you're in. This is how you'll set up trade, as well as go on kind of little mini quests to get additional resources or tech that you can use. The big problem that the demo has is that it doesn't really, I think, explain the finer points of the gameplay, and it also doesn't really get into what the core gameplay loop is going to be. I don't know if this is going to be like a campaign style, complete a map, go to the next one. Is it going to be more of a grand campaign, almost like a longer form version of Banished or Anno? Again, it's hard to tell. But the production values are certainly on point in terms of the genre. And if you do like your logistics style city building, I would say give this one a check. For our next game, this is The Machine That Breathes. And this is kind of a lo-fi survival horror, almost like Game Boy aesthetic style game. We are appears to be an android in a giant facility that was designed to keep drilling into the Earth's surface. When it lost connection to the surface, it has remained dormant, and apparently a whole lot of things have been going on in the meantime. So, our hook here is that this is survival horror gameplay. You are very limited in terms of your ability to fight or engage with enemies. You have kind of stamina points you can use to hop over like low gates and stuff to try and get away. And the game introduces several kinds of weapons and mods. The mods basically give you functionality, but they must be equipped in your very limited inventory in order to make use of them. And the game definitely has this very haunting atmosphere going on, and especially this is helped by the lo-fi kind of get like that, static res effect as you're going through inventory and reading notes and such. In terms of the story, I don't know where it's going to go, which is always a good sign for me. And if there are any complaints with this one, the controls can be a little bit weird to work out if you're playing this with keyboard, and I think the gamepad might be a little bit easier to play with, if it does work. I'm not sure if gamepad functionality was in the demo or not. But the puzzles seem like it is one of those games where you're going to have to try and figure out what things actually do, and then make use of that. Like, it's not going to tell you the functionality there. But all in all, I was surprised about how much I was liking this game, and if you are a fan of survival horror and adventure style gameplay, then at least give this one a check. For our next game, if Turbo Overkill was my favorite of the festival, then Ghost Lore may be the best surprise gem that we played from it. This is described as an East Punk style game that focuses on Southeast Asian folklore, where you are going to have to fight various mythological creatures, try to save the day, and, as per usual, collect lots and lots of shiny loot. So, right off the bat, Ghost Lore is one of those games that if you look at it or if you're just watching general footage, it doesn't look all that impressive. But from what we played of this one on stream, there's definitely a lot of refinement and iteration on the ARPG formula. You have these various glyphs that you can attach to your character that provide passive benefits, including set glyphs that if you put specific other types in its collection, it will give you further bonuses. Your character belongs to a class, but you are free to tri-class your character as they level up. So of course I went with this one that summons these giant dragons out of the ground that act as turrets and tanking for me. There's of course randomized or procedurally generated gear. The maps are procedurally generated, and it also supports multiplayer. I believe it's server based, but I am not 100% sure on that one. And with Ghost Lore, From watching the footage here, again, nothing here I think is above and beyond for the genre. If you've played games like Woken, Path of Exile, Diablo, and so on, that Ghost Lord does fit more in kind of the contemporary, like early 2000s style of ARPG gameplay. But what it does really well is that from what we played, it is just a very well executed take on that formula. And if you are a fan of ARPG games, I would definitely give this one a recommendation for you. And I'm really curious to see where things go with the tri-classing, advanced loot, and things along those lines. For our final game of the showcase, there are a lot of winners that we played over the 7 days or so of the festival, but I wanted to give a shout out to a game that I think a lot of people may have missed, and that is Renaine, which hopefully I didn't butcher that too much. This is a 2D action adventure game with a really great soundtrack, which you may not be able to hear over my voice here, but this is an example again of a game that you can tell there was a lot of passion that was put into it, with the music and just general stylings. You explore this world trying to get to and defeat an evil dragon, but of course a lot of random things are going to get in your way and people wanting your help. The game features a lot of hidden secrets and collectibles. There are bonus areas that you can visit provided you find specific MacGuffins in each level. There are boss fights, upgrades, and the combat system is on the fairly interesting side with different combo moves and emblems you can equip to give you passive abilities. And again, this is one of those games that, in terms of the raw elements, it's nothing that we haven't seen before, but it just feels like a very well executed take with a lot of passion driving it. And I would definitely put this on the list if you enjoy 2D action adventure platformer style games, especially kind of like old school Nintendo games as well. But again, the charm definitely won things over for me with this one, and I'm curious to see where things go with the finished version. If I had a complaint about this, I'm not sure how they're really going to balance in terms of checkpoints and lost progress, as you need to spend money in order to unlock permanent upgrades, and if you don't get it, you then have to repeat entire levels over again. And while you can do this, or you have that excuse you can look for more hidden stuff, it can be frustrating to lose a lot of time like that. But again, just a very charming game with a lot of side quests, bonus areas, and humor to go around, and I would definitely check this one out. So, with that said, we're going to wrap up this Best of Next Fest showcase. There are still so many more games I give shoutouts to. Thank you for tuning in. As always, do the liking, subscribing, commenting that people tell you to do. If you're an indie developer working on your own game and let me take a look at for a future stream and video, please reach out. Check out our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.